let's do roll call. City Recorder Krager.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Youth Councilor Turley.
Here.
Council President Goodhouse.
Here.
Councilor Newton.
Here.
Councilor Lube.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Okay, we are going to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance on our own. So we'll display a flag and mute and do the pledge. Okay. Staff, any non-agenda items, either staff or council? I know of a couple, so City Manager Wine, you've got one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one that can be held until the end of the meeting. I just want to confirm consensus with the council about the nature of assistance. I want to make sure that we have a common understanding about the nature of assistance that council wants staff to explore.
Okay, and then I also would like to recognize that it is Public Service Recognition Week, and so to all the staff of the city, I'd like to recognize all of you for the services you provide to our community, and thank you. All right, so let's move on to public comment. City Manager Wine, is there any follow-up to previous public comment?
We have no follow-up tonight, Mr. Mayor. We have some items of correspondence I'll report on at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Was there any public comment that was submitted to council? I'm not aware of any, but no? Okay.
Nope, there was none.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is used for routine items such as approval of minutes, receipt of council meeting calendars, proclamations, appointments to boards and committees, and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements with partner agencies. Approval may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Anyone may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have meeting minutes from a large number of council meetings. And I believe that is all. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I had a chance to read all the minutes, and this is really minor, but in the minutes for October 1st on page 3, Central Services, item 8, I think there's an extra word in there. So I think if we just could take out she, it says Councilor Newton, she said the recommendations. So it's very minor, but I noticed it. So.
Okay, so are you wanting to make a motion with that correction to it?
I will move that we approve the consent agenda with the adjustment to the minutes for October 1st.
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councilor Newton.
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is adopted unanimously. Item number 4 was scheduled in case it was needed. Appeal of the Art Rutkin Elementary School conditional use permit. Item tonight was a placeholder to address rebuttal testimony if necessary. Council received rebuttal from the applicant, the appellant, and the city. All those documents are being entered into the record, and no further council action is required tonight. So we will not have further discussion on that unless City Attorney Rahala has anything changed.
No, Council, nothing has changed. That will be for discussion next week.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to item number 5, consider resolution acknowledging Southwest Corridor minimum operable segment determination. Mr. Asher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. Nice to see you all. I am here in support of the resolution before you ratifying the decision made by the Southwest Corridor Steering Committee in December of 2019 to locate the minimum operable segment or minimum operable segment terminus at Upper Boones Ferry Road, and also to clarify the City of Tigard's role in any future, we call it the MOS, minimum operable segment decisions related to the Southwest Corridor project. I don't have a slide presentation tonight. I think it's a pretty straightforward item. I'll try to keep my remarks brief. But to give you an overview, this project, as you know, is years and years in the making, and some of us have been working on it for years and years, both at the staff level and at council, and that's a good thing, because decisions get made in a project like this one, and compromises get made and sometimes get forgotten. And it is really important to the staff that one sort of grand bargain compromise not get forgotten in the Southwest Corridor project. And it has to do with the alignment and the location of stations. And what ends up possibly being a loophole that I have been concerned about from the beginning of the project, and am trying to close as I tried to close it through the Memorandum of Understanding Agreement that we came to with TriMet in November of 2018. And the issue is a sort of a simple one. I see that, Kat. The issue is this. When all of the partner jurisdictions got together in the what I'll call early years of this project, some difficult decisions had to be made about the scope of the project. And you all know this history. It was decided and then sort of confirmed again and again that the most important thing about this project was for it to reach the city of Tualatin, or almost the city of Tualatin, but at least Bridgeport Village. And that became the most important part of the project, more important than any traffic impacts that might be felt along the way, more important than any transit-oriented development that we might care about, more important than anything that any singular jurisdiction would care about. That's what everybody signed on to. And one of the consequences of that was an alignment that really couldn't quite get to downtown Tigard, could only skirt downtown Tigard, and that's the Hall. That's become the Hall Boulevard station. And several of you spoke to concerns that you had about that station location when TriMet was here a couple weeks ago, presenting on the conceptual design report. And it is it's a troubling, it's a difficult station location, and it continues to be. When we began to think about the possibility that a project wouldn't reach Bridgeport Village, and that's where this thing called the MOS comes up. And it's actually a requirement in these large transit projects under the National Environmental Protection Act, in the EIS process, to say what the shorter project is that you would build if you had to go to something shorter. So it's kind of baked into this whole process. What's the shorter project? I have always been concerned, and I think several of you know this and have worked with me on this issue, that even though everybody in the region decided to kind of like hold hands and say that Bridgeport Village, it defines the southernmost end of this project, that when the final analysis was in, we were not going to have enough money as a region, or enough wherewithal as a region to actually get the project quite that far, and we were going to end up having to build a shorter project. And so this issue of the MOS became really important because clearly, if the project was being built from Portland to Tigard, it would be designed in a way that considered certain things about Portland and Tigard, perhaps differently than if you were trying to build a project down to Bridgeport Village. This is not a Portland to Tigard project. At least that's not how it's been designed. That's not how it's been scoped. it could end up being a Portland to Tigard project. And in the event that that happens, that would be the MOS. And I think that the city of Tigard, the Tigard City Council, should care a lot about what the Portland to Tigard project looked like in the end, and what the final station, where it would be and how it would be designed. And TriMet knows that, and we worked that into the memorandum of understanding with TriMet to say, listen, when it comes time to define the MOS, really that should be done together, the city of Tigard through its council and TriMet. Well, that didn't quite happen. The TriMet staff recommended a final terminus that would be at Upper Boones Ferry. And that's what the steering committee acted on in December, without really soliciting the city of Tigard's recommendation. As it turns out, it didn't change anything about any of our station locations or designs, and so the action was taken. But this resolution ensures that if the Upper Boones Ferry terminus location can't be reached, and I would say that that is a real possibility, that that thing that we were trying to do in the MOU actually happens. And that thing is the real incredible involvement of Tigard City Council when it comes to figuring out what that shorter project is. And so all we've done here in this resolution is mimic the language that is in the Memorandum of Understanding, to say that if that has to be revisited, as we felt like it needed to be under the MOU, the Tigard City Council would be conferred with by TriMet and would have standing to, under its own policy, to make a recommendation to the steering committee about the location of these stations. The last thing I'll say is that this is not that unusual for a city or for a jurisdiction to attach conditions to a light rail project that it feels very important. The city of Portland, for example, when we started this project, said that the Ross Island bridgehead mess really needed to be sorted out through this Southwest Corridor project, that the transit project didn't necessarily need to pay for a new bridgehead, but it needed to take it through the environmental process and pay for that. And that was a condition that Portland put on this process. Washington County has always said that the most important thing for Washington County is that Bridgeport terminus. It's more important than great separation at Upper Boones Ferry. It's more important than really anything at all, and that their money was going to be contingent upon that project. All I'm trying to say here, and have been saying for a long time, with the help of the mayor and Councilor Goodhouse, Councilor Anderson, this is not a new issue, is that if we do end up having to break that grand bargain, and not only are we not going to Bridgeport, but now we're not even going to Upper Boones Ferry, I want the Tigard City Council to have real standing in the decision about what would be built. And so that's what the resolution says, and I will conclude my comments, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with Youth Councilor Turley. Any questions?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
So the timing, Kenny, on this is because they need this 60% engineering document. So we just got to get this in, or is this all because of the MOS?
Actually, Councilor Anderson, the timing is not really that sensitive. It's not really pegged to anything in particular. We could have taken this action anytime since December, and you can take it in the future if you didn't want to take it tonight. I do think that the project has some very difficult figuring out to do now more than ever about its budget. I would not be at all surprised if this MOS discussion or the shorter project discussion didn't kind of rear its head again as early as this summer. The local match is going to be as hard or harder to come by as we thought now with the decline in gas tax and other funding sources. So the project had budget challenges before. Those are only more grave now. So I am sort of in a hurry to get this policy in place on your behalf. But if you wanted to wait on it, the project wouldn't be harmed by it.
Councilor Newton.
This just deals with the MOS, right, Kenny? It doesn't deal with the issues we have about the design elements around the Hall station related to if we go to Upper Boones that we talked about last time we met with TriMet, right? We still have issues around that design if we go all the way to Upper Boones. Is that correct? That doesn't deal with this, right?
That is absolutely correct. I had a meeting on the design of that station today, assuming it's right where they've placed it.
Okay, so we have opportunities to weigh in on that as we move forward.
We can make opportunities if you wanted to, and they're going to be coming back with a CDR update. And as the mayor well knows, we've got sort of a captive audience over there at TriMet now.
Well, I was just a little concerned because going through the presentation, which was really well done, they had all these really nice pictures for all the other stations. And then when we got to Hall Street, it was a black and white plan view. And so I'm like, okay, this is a little disappointing. But I'm assuming this resolution doesn't really deal with those issues. That's a separate issue, correct?
Well, okay, so let me give you an even more refined, more precise answer. The reason we have the issues that you're talking about is because this line continues down south of downtown. If we end up in a situation where this line is stopping right at Hall Boulevard, and because that's the logical place to stop the line because they've got their operations and maintenance facility there, they've got a third track to get trains off of the line, they've got a transit facility, they've got all the things that you would need to have a last terminal station. What my point is that those are issues that are legacy issues from a different set of decisions, and we shouldn't have you shouldn't necessarily have to contend with all of those issues because the station is located in that place for a totally different set of reasons. So they're indirectly related, but tonight's action is only in the event that the minimum operable segment gets reopened.
Got it. Thanks.
Council President Goodhouse.
Just going to say, just thank you for staying on top of TriMet and keeping on top of the MOU and like you said, it just the language emulates what's the MOU and was this what we mentioned a couple months ago that was going to come back to council that we had to decide on and vote? Is this okay?
Yes.
So yeah, I don't have any questions and just thank you for staying on top of them and staying on top of this and get what we can for Tigard, and if it does happen, then we can do a more of an in-depth talk about where that station will be.
You're welcome.
Councilor Lube.
Yeah, I just also wanted to echo what Council President Goodhouse said. I'm appreciative of you keeping this sort of in the forefront of our minds because it's such an important piece that could come to head. And so thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And I'm in support of it.
Is someone ready to make a motion, or is there further discussion?
I move to approve resolution number -20 or 20-22.
I second that, Council President Goodhouse.
Yep.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-22. A resolution ratifying the December 2019 Southwest Corridor Steering Committee decision to locate the minimum operable segment, MOS, terminus at Upper Boones Ferry Road and reaffirming the City of Tigard's role in future decisions related to the MOS option.
City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councilor Newton.
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 20-22 is adopted unanimously. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good meeting.
All right, non-agenda items. City Manager Wine. I'd like to go back to the discussion about additional COVID-19 actions.
Yes, please. Council, back on the 21st, we as staff, heard your discussion, and we have been working on bringing back to you at your meeting of May 12th options related to utility assistance, and there are several parts to that utility assistance. Business outreach and a campaign to show support for the business community, a digital access plan, and some work to be sure that we're reporting to you about our communications. So in the couple of conversations that the council has had about the city's response to COVID-19 impacts and the kinds of things the city is going to be doing to try to help the community and the business community and our residents in the wake of COVID-19, over the last week, I've been hearing questions from you. In some cases, it's just one of you, but it seemed like a good idea for you to have a discussion and for me to get clarity from you. And I'm looking for consensus as a council about the assistance. I want to tell you a little bit about the assistance programs that we are bringing back to you and the recommendations, and then also I want to hear from the council and hopefully hear clearly that the full council has, anything else the full council has support for related to assistance. So I'm just going to briefly summarize that the takeaways that staff had from your conversation on the utility assistance front is that next week we're going to be bringing you a proposal to delay utility rate increases for all customers to January, including communications about that delay of the rate increase, a plan to waive the water base charge to unemployed utility customers. We said that we would, as staff, explore whether there is other utility rate relief that is indicated for the business community if it's anything different than what I just said, and also a communications plan related to backflow testing. So, in the last week, I've heard from a couple of you with questions about late fees, questions about other rate relief, and it seemed like more discussion from the council was needed so that we have clarity if there's anything beyond those proposals that you would like to talk about or like to give us guidance about things you'd like to explore. And I guess I'm also clarifying that it helps me, it helps staff I'll just say it this way. When I hear from just one of you, I will go looking for, I'll be going to look for the full council wanting to pursue something. So when one of you tells me, well, I thought we were going to waive all of our late fees, I say, well, that wasn't the guidance we took, but that's the purpose of this discussion would be to just hear if there's consensus of the full council for other fee waivers, other assistance, anything else that you're wanting to move forward. And we have staff here tonight to also answer some questions if you have them about the things I've already said or what we're bringing back to you next week.
All right, so we'll go counselor by counselor. Let's start with Council President Goodhouse.
Okay. I guess we just talked about the base charge for residential. So I think last time the mayor and Councilor Newton and I were talking about if we could look at things for businesses, if we could look at doing the same thing for businesses that are either closed or anything like that, to do the same thing, waive the base water charge for them. All late fees, waive all late fees in the city. I know we waived it for residential bills, but the mayor and I had been sent a bill from a business owner that had a late fee on there. If we could look at waiving all the late fees, and then if we could look at what had mentioned last time, delaying alarm and business license payments for businesses, especially if a business is closed. Every little bit makes a difference for them, and so those are some of the things I would like to see next time. And if there's any suggestions from staff.
Council President Goodhouse, can I clarify for you made a pretty broad statement about just late fees in general. Can you indicate whether you're intending that to be as broad as every late fee in the city or certain late fees, or what the scope of your statement is trying to cover?
Well, that's true. I guess there could be other ones I may not know about. I would stick with the residential and the business fees, whether it be for water for business and residential, whether it be alarm permits for residential, business, license fees. I don't know if there's anything else that would fall under residential and business that would have fees associated to it. I don't see waiving fees for development or any of those things, anything like that, but more for the user. And I would look at also, to clarify with the mayor saying, kind of doing clarifying, I would look at the waiving the base charges for water for the small businesses. I don't think something that, unless there's really a need for big businesses, I see it more for the small business.
How are you defining that? Like if we're giving staff direction to look at waiving certain fees for, or not waiving them, eliminating late fees potentially for small business, when does a business become a large business? Or how will they know when they're looking at one?
That's a good question. I would say, I think under 50 would be, under 50 employees.
Okay, so that'd be almost every business in Tigard, probably.
I don't know. That I don't know. I guess I'd have to think of what that one is, or if staff has a better idea to how to determine what a smaller business would be.
Okay. City Manager Wine, I think in the spirit of trying to get clarity, I'm going to ask you whether you have questions after every single counselor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm also trying to, well, let me just say it this way. I'm listening to what's being proposed, and I'm also trying to confer with our FIS director, Mr. LaFrance, to just double check about what we actually charge late fees on now beyond utility payments, which, as I understand it, you've already waived. Business license fees and alarm permits. So I also heard delaying alarm and business license payments. It'd be helpful guidance to know if Councilor Goodhouse, you have an idea about a time period that you would suggest that this would occur for, because business licenses all renew in January, but alarm permits renew on a rolling basis. So right now, someone might be getting a late charge for an alarm permit, but someone who renews in October wouldn't be. So I guess I'm just wanting to be sure that I understand your intent for how long, if there was a waiver, you would be proposing it for, and we can explore this.
For the alarm permit, I would say those that are closed, something like 3 to 6 months after reopening. Or those affected by it. That's a good question, though. I think unless we just did a total of, after the emergency, city emergency is lifted, 3 to 6 months after that might be an easier way. That way businesses are back open. The business licenses are till January. That may not be an issue, but I don't know how long this is going to go on. So I would say, just for an easier way, 3 to 6 months after the state of emergency for the city is lifted.
All right, Councilor Lube.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work that the staff is doing to look into these. I'm supportive of the utility and looking into it for the businesses and, for the residents as well. I would be okay with looking at suspending the fines, I guess, for the business license and alarm permits, but I'm not sure about delaying the payment for the alarm permits, because the business licenses, you said, are in January, and so that's something I think I'd be interested in seeing how many potential businesses it would impact, but I'm in support with, I think, the direction that you had taken from our last meeting, and that's sort of what I took away from the meeting as well.
Thank you.
Right. Go ahead, City Manager Wine. Any questions for Councilor Loop?
I don't have questions for Councilor Lube except to clarify the information that we have from the police department about alarm permits is that we've had a single request for a waiver, and that was the one that you sent in to me. We've had one business request for a refund, and we only know about business closures if they tell us. And we haven't had any requests for an exemption so far. Anyway, we can explore both a waiver of late fee and whether waiving the alarm permit fee is indicated or not, and recommend to you if the full council wants us to explore that.
All right, Councilor Newton.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was unmuted. So I also feel like the information that staff presented reflects what we talked about. And my understanding was that we were looking at waiving the wastewater charge for small businesses. That was my understanding. I don't really have an issue with waiving late fees for a business license. You know, because they take effect in January, I wonder if businesses are actually closing, would we indicate to them they can submit for some sort of a refund or something like that? I mean, we might want to look at a way how to handle the business license fees. Alarm permits, you know, we're getting alarm calls. So, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about waiving the permits. Late fees, you know, I might be willing to look at something like that, but I'm a little bit concerned about waiving the permit fees. So I'd be interested in knowing what the impact is on that. So yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on what was presented.
Can I make a clarification? I wasn't
Sure.
meaning to waive the alarm permits. I was meaning to delay the collection of those until after the city's state of emergency is lifted. I wanted to clarify that. So we would still collect them. It would just be a delayed collection on those. So a delayed collection on.
Wouldn't it be the same effect if we just said there weren't going to be any late fees?
Well, the late fee, but then if there's an alarm permit due, so for example, if someone gets issued a bill today that they have to pay alarm bill today of $50, but they're closed, we would waive the collection of that until the state of emergency is lifted or they get open back up. So for example, if it was a bar and they have an alarm permit, they're not open, they're not bringing any income in, we would say 3 months after they reopen, then they can pay that bill.
But how is that any different than saying there's no repercussion for not paying it now?
Oh.
I guess I'm just trying to get clarification. I mean, if there's no late fee, you can pay it whenever you want. I mean, there's no repercussion for not paying it. I guess I'm just trying to understand whether there's an actual difference there.
Because we'd have to have a collection date, I think. By setting it, we'd have to know when we collect it. So when we do waive it, we'd have to somehow notify them of when we would collect them. And that'd be a staff issue when we would know. Because we waived them, that's true. It's the same thing as waiving the late fee. But then when do we know to collect them and how they know when they have to pay by before we then do put the late fees back into effect?
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Just a point of clarification, City Manager Wine, that the alarm permits are generally $25 to $50. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
It's not a big number, of course, but if they're closed, that could be a big number. I would say a case-by-case basis. So if they have an issue, they can apply for a waiver, and then we could do it that way, because I think many businesses would just go ahead and pay that, and if we didn't stop it. So, for example, 50 businesses paid it, 2 have a problem, they could apply for a waiver, and I think that would be...
Councilor Anderson, are you suggesting they could apply for a waiver to not have to pay the alarm permit fee at all, or a waiver for not having to pay a late fee?
Not have to pay a late fee, so give them like a 90-day waiver of payment. suspension of payment.
Okay. Any other comments? And then City Manager Wine, any questions of Councilor Anderson?
I don't have any questions. We can explore, I'll call that a grace period, or, we can explore whether a business could apply or show need that they would like to have it waived for several months. And
yeah, my thought is that generally most people are going to pay these on time, and we won't have an issue. But the ones that need help, we can give that grace period.
Councilor Turley.
I agree with the utility bill proposal, and I also support the alarm proposal as well.
Okay, thank you. For my thoughts on this are really particularly around the alarm permits, since that's sort of what's getting attention. And I would say that frankly, the business license fees being due in January means that that's kind of not, to me, it's not a top of mind problem right now. It may be a problem if this becomes a prolonged economic situation. My hope is that that's not the case, but I just think it doesn't, how do I best articulate this? The imposition of a late fee on a program where we're already only charging, we only charge the alarm for an alarm permit because it costs us money to manage the program. That's the only reason that we charge. And so I don't think it's going to cost us a lot of extra money to manage the program if someone's like not able to pay quite as fast. And so I guess in this current environment, I question whether we need to be charging or imposing late fees, or should be, when I'm not sure we absolutely have to. And we could still indicate that the organization or whomever owes the alarm permit fee will still owe it, but that they have, I think the grace period description makes sense, that, we would give 90 days, for example, 90 days after the city's emergency declaration is lifted, that those would become due. And as long as they were paid by then, for example, there would not be a late fee. I mean, that type of thing would be what the kind of thing I'm thinking about. And I just think it sends the wrong message to be sending anyone bills right now. I mean, just like we said, we weren't going to cut people's water off. I just think it sends the wrong message to be saying, hey, by the way, here's your bill. And yeah, we know you couldn't pay it. We understand why, but here's a late fee tacked onto it. I just don't think that's a good message necessarily to be giving. City Manager Wine, any questions of me?
Is she there?
On mute, City Manager.
yes, thank you. I think I know the chief is on the call, but I can explore with the police department what either an application for waiver or a waiver of late fees for some period of time would look like. I don't think that would be hard to administer. I'm saying that without having talked to her, but I understand. I think this is clearer guidance from council about what you'd like us to do, and I understand that at the very least, the late fee on alarm permits, we would either not have due or not collect for some time.
Council President Goodhouse?
Can I clarify through the discussion? Are we also have consensus on with businesses with their base water feed to take a look at waiving that?
And if I could, I also know Mr. LaFrance is on the line, and I'd like for him to describe right now the proposal that we have we're preparing to bring back to council, and the guidance that we need from you about utility relief for businesses. So Toby, if you're on the line, or I think, and then we can ask council for guidance if there's something that is different from what we're already proposing.
Hello, Mayor and Council. This is Toby LaFrance, Finance Director for the City of Tigard. We are bringing forward a proposal next week which will address what we heard last week in terms of utility bill relief. So first off, every single customer in the city that the City of Tigard serves with our utility billing will receive relief, and that will be in the form of the delay of utility rate increases from July 1 to January 1. That 6 months will save your typical household in the City of Tigard $9 a month. For a commercial customer with a 1-inch meter, their savings actually on a monthly basis is significant. It's about $70 a month that they are saving. So that goes out to every single customer, residential, commercial. They're going to get that relief. In addition, we're expanding our existing program for low-income customers. That program has allowed low-income customers to contact St. Vincent de Paul, where they'd be eligible for the water portion of their bill to be paid for, and they're eligible for it 3 times a year and up to $200. What we're going to be recommending to you is that we take that program and expand it so that people who qualify are able to receive that benefit through the end of the calendar year without a dollar limit. Then lastly, what we're going to do for people who are directly affected by the COVID outbreak and who are experiencing unemployment in the City of Tigard, we are looking at doing a utility bill credit. What it's based upon are the base fees for water, sewer, and storm. When you calculate all of those, it's $42 and change. What we're looking at bringing to you is a flat $40 credit. So anybody who receives a utility bill in the city of from the City of Tigard could be eligible for a $40 credit against their bill if they're suffering from unemployment. And that would be, we have a budget for that program of $750,000. And so that relief would be available through the end of December or until the $750 has been used up, whichever comes first. So that's
Mr.
what
LaFrance, can you
yes.
clarify one thing you just said about that? You said anybody that receives a utility bill from the City of Tigard. Does that mean that non-Tigard residents who receive our utility bills would be eligible for that assistance?
Absolutely. Those customers are paying into our systems. We have agreements with our partners in that area that we will treat customers water customers served by the City of Tigard that are outside of the City of Tigard the same way that we would treat customers inside the City of Tigard. So yes, we would be making this program eligible to water customers outside of the City of Tigard.
All right. If we end up moving forward with that, I hope that we make sure that we communicate that pretty clearly.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
We're already working on a communications plan, and that includes contacting our partners outside of the City of Tigard. And we have the Water Advisory Board. That's one way that we'd be connecting with them, but also we'd be connecting through to the customers directly as well.
Okay, I'm sorry I cut you off, but keep going.
Not a problem. It was perfect timing. That was, that's the essence of the program. In addition to that, we already have been doing a waiver of late fees, as you were talking about earlier this evening. that is eligible for, again, all customers, residential, commercial, inside the city of Tigard, outside the city of Tigard. So anybody who gets a utility bill from us has been eligible for the waiver of a late fee. And that's been something that's been in place since the original declaration that council made. So that's the program that we're looking at doing. I will say where we've been struggling a little bit is with our program for residential, with our unemployment discount offered to households that have somebody who's unemployed. It's something where we have a form that we've been developing. The customer can fill out the form. They can provide us with the evidence from the state that they're eligible for unemployment, and so it's a verifiable thing that they can do on a monthly basis. In terms of businesses, the hard part is we can't, essentially, if we were to say all businesses are eligible in some way, shape, or form for something, we're going to get through our $750 awfully fast. And so we need to come up with some criteria that council would like to have. So one of the things that would help out staff is if you have concepts, ideas of ways to create criteria, whether it's businesses that have closed their doors, or we also have been looking at businesses that are in sectors that have been most heavily hit by unemployment, such as restaurant, hospitality, medical field. Those are some other criteria that we've been looking at. We plan to bring you some ideas. However, since we have you this evening, if you have any specific direction that you're able to provide this evening, that could speed along the ability to implement a program.
So Toby, this is, I guess I want to just explore whether there may be options to, instead of saying we're going to take care of it, to just delay collection of anything for at least 90 days or something like that, so that perhaps we don't have to bear the cost entirely, or really the only cost to us ends up being in the form of a delayed collection of revenue rather than a waiver altogether for certain business customers. I guess that's one idea I have that I'll just share off the bat, and then we can check with other counselors. Council President Goodhouse, anything?
Yeah, Toby, you're asking about what would classify. I think one of the obvious ones would be ones that are closed and can't be open. You get bars, you get certain restaurants, you get hair salons, you get certain medical facilities, things like that are completely closed. Those will be on the list. And then I think if you take kind of what you hinted on with hospitality, or those ones that are drastically affected where they have limited amount of business they can do, or even if they're allowed to be open or not, I think that'll kind of define who the small business is. And then if we look at the options compared to, they'd have to apply for it. So it kind of goes back to what Councilor Anderson is saying, is that you get some businesses that will pay it, but you have people that will apply for it. So they have to just show that either they've been shut down by this, or how they've showed that the drastic reduction, there's a dog again, or how they're drastically shut down in this. And then we can look at the two options of either waiving the base amount, or delaying it, or doing it on, waiting 90 days and then breaking it into chunks and putting it onto their bill or something like that. It might be 90 days might not be the best, because whenever they can reopen, so it might be after reopen date or something, but I'll let staff look at those options.
So if I may ask a clarifying question there. So if we as a city were waiving utility fees, so I have two questions. One, would it be anything that shows up on a utility bill, or are you looking at specific utilities? And two, say if we waived 2 to 3 months worth, then we would essentially say they have 6 months, 12 months to pay off what's in arrears?
Yeah, I think that might, I mean, as I was mentioned earlier by someone, every little dollar counts. So I think if we took the whole amount and took like a 6 months after they reopened and allocated that over 6 months. So if it was $600 they're back, there'd just be $100 every month once they reopened. Because if someone's utility bill with all those on there and they're closed, that could be, you know, I don't know how much that is for an average business, but it could be a couple $100 every month that they're paying when they're not open.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lube?
My concern with Council President Goodhouse's comments is that I think when we were specifically looking at utilities, we were looking at a way to universally reach out to our residents who are struggling. And so I would want to make sure that what we're providing or what we're offering our businesses is something that we're also offering our residents. So the businesses shouldn't be able to waive all of the bills, you know, and then pay it in arrears if we're not prepared. I think I wouldn't be comfortable not also offering that to our residents who are also struggling with it. And so I support continuing to go by the original plan that we're looking at, which is the water-based charges, and continuing to look at that instead.
Councilor Newton?
Yeah, I had the same thought as Councilor Lube about wanting to make sure that we're helping our residents, you know, equally to the business. In terms of the businesses, I think the sectors that the state's using for terms of reopening, like restaurants, personal services, might be an easy way to capture who might be eligible. And I think to a certain degree, we can track that easily on our business licenses. So that might be something to think about. I have a question though that's totally unrelated. What about, and I know we have no control over this, Mr. LaFrance, what about the third of our residents and businesses that aren't in the Tiger water service area? I don't know if Tualatin Valley Water or any of those other utilities are eligible for PGE and that kind of thing, but do you know anything about that? It's not a problem we can really solve, but we do have, I'm sure we have residents and businesses in that water service area that are also struggling. So do you happen to know anything about that? Or?
So actually, thank you for bringing that up. So for residents and businesses that are in that area, we still bill them for clean water services. So sewer, stormwater, and of course there's the city fees for parks and recreation, the street maintenance fee. Those customers will, they'll benefit by the delay in our rate increases. And secondly, if we have any individuals, households that have somebody who is unemployed, they will also be eligible for the $40 discount on their utility bill.
Okay, thanks for that. I don't really think I have any more other comments now. So.
Youth Councilor Turley.
I don't have any additional comments at this time.
Councilor Anderson.
I just had one thought that some of the base water charges are included in business leases. So they're paying them as a flat rate, and perhaps the landlord might pocket that money when we're intending it to go to the leasee.
You're thinking like in arrangements where it's triple net with common area maintenance fees, that usually includes utilities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably a quarter of the leases out there, but you know, we just have to communicate with the landlords that these are going to the business first.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that is I think the ones I've seen or been involved in before, those leases usually charge the common area maintenance on like a every 90-day basis anyway. It's not an immediate type of thing. Like you don't get a bill every single time they mow the lawn or get a water bill, right? I mean, they're usually in arrears.
Some are month to month, but yeah, some of them are 90 days for sure. Anyway, that's just kind of an issue, yeah.
All right, so we've just thrown a lot of stuff out there. City Manager Wine and Mr. LaFrance, do you feel like you have enough direction, do I dare ask, or would you like to hear more, clarify more, or maybe you can summarize what you think you've heard so that individual counselors can either clarify and or add or acknowledge, yes, that's what we're wanting.
I think I might ask a clarifying question, and that is, I heard two of you say that you wanted to be sure that the relief that we offer to the businesses is the same as what we are offering residents. And I didn't hear that from three of you. And I guess I've heard support for the program that we're putting together about waiver of the base charge that we'll be bringing back to you next week. So I guess I'm asking for additional clarification about, is there consensus for council to explore additional business, anything additional for businesses that I just want to, I guess I want to check in and just see, is there anything additional for business? I've heard a couple of you say you'd be interested in it, and I haven't heard that level of support from others. So I'm looking for consensus at council.
Can I jump in?
Sure, Council President Goodhouse.
What I hear for the residents, we're looking at waiving that base charge for people on unemployment. For business, the reason why I was bringing up the business is because they were forced to shut down. I understand residential or residential citizens have suffering, or they might be out of work or things, but there's unemployment, there's other things. But I was thinking of a way that you had businesses that were completely shut down, can't have any way to be open and have an expense they have to pay. And the difference I see on the business part is that they're going to be repaying it, so we're not losing it. It's just a repayment program on the business side.
So do we have at least three counselors who support that, or three members of council? Others that support that?
Mayor, I've got a comment.
Councilor Anderson.
I think I'm in favor of going forward with what you're bringing next week with the base water charges for the businesses. But any other relief, I really think should be handled in the budget process.
Okay. Councilor Newton, Councilor Lube, other thoughts on this to give the city manager clear majority direction on the council?
Councilor Lube, I will go ahead and echo what Councilor Anderson was saying. So support the water-based charges and then look at other ways through the budgeting process.
Mr. Mayor, I concur with Councilor Lube and Councilor Anderson. I'm not sure we're going to know the effects of this on our community for several months. And so as part of the budget process, I'm going to be interested in seeing even leaving some money unappropriated so we can, as we move through this, we can respond quickly to the needs of our community. So I think for immediate relief, this is a good way to go, and I don't think we're finished, unfortunately. So that's my thought.
Okay, well that's the majority of the council there. So City Manager Wine, do you feel like you have clear direction of the majority of council now?
I do. I appreciate the discussion and the ideas that you identified tonight about additional, whether it's business relief or delaying collection. Staff will continue to explore these ideas. You're only a couple weeks away from taking a look at the budget and having your budget discussions. So this is helpful discussion for us to hear so that we can give some additional thought to other relief or other ways we might offer utility relief to all of our customers. So I think we have the guidance we need. I'll ask Mr. LaFrance, is there anything else that you wanted to ask about?
I think we have what we need for next week.
Okay. And I'm
All
sure
right.
we'll discuss it with you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there'll be
Appreciate
some
that.
time there for some clarifying.
Okay. All right, City Manager Wine, do you have an administrative report?
I have no administrative report tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, there's no executive session scheduled. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Council President, I second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Lube and seconded by Council President Goodhouse. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. We're supposed to do a roll call vote for adjourning. I'm sorry. City Recorder, roll call vote for adjournment.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
for Lube,
Yes.
Councilor Anderson.
Let's adjourn.
All right. That's a yes, thank you.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.